welcome back to episode number 84 of your Raise the Banner podcast. I am one of your three co-hosts as usual. Ben, did you notice I did not say let's get this Bad Larry going today?
You did not. You went with the B list option of let's jump right into this.
Yeah, all right. I didn't do it on purpose, but I remembered as we were starting up there that I did not say it. But anyways, your three co-hosts, McAtor, Benny, Ballgame, Dirth, Zach Brewitt. How we doing today, boys?
Doing well.
It is hot.
It is very hot.
It is hot.
All right, that's how you doing?
Doing well. It is. I don't know. It might be hotter than the baseball hot stove, but we'll see.
I mean, so far it absolutely is, but that's where we can jump into it. We were just talking before we jumped on the air, before we jumped into it, as I said. Duran, and by Duran I mean the closer for the Minnesota Twins, is on the verge of being dealt. It's to be determined of where he gets dealt. There's a lot of noise that the LA Dodgers are in the mix. The Phillies are in the mix. The Sox are supposedly in the mix. Conversations, Mariners. Conversations seem to say that the Twins want Andrew Painter from the Phillies, who is basically their top prospect. Going off of that, what do you guys see the likelihood? I know I mentioned off the air, like maybe Arias and Garcia is like a comp for that type price tag. What do you guys see as the likelihood of someone like a Duran coming to Boston in a deal?
Not very high.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think the Red Sox are going to pay the premium the Twins want. I know you wanted to save the conversation for here. I mean, you could make the argument that Duran is a top 5 closer in baseball, if not the best closer in baseball. I know statistically speaking, it might not be the case this season. Like, I'd have to really take a deep dive into it, but he's only 27. If you trade for him, you get him for the remainder of this year and 2 more seasons of arbitration before he hits the open market. I just don't think the Red Sox are going to pay the price. I understand that guys like Garcia and Arias are expendable because of who we have on the team ahead of them. I just don't know if the Red Sox would be willing to part ways with those quality of prospects to acquire what would amount to be like a 1B or 1A to Chapman being the other one. I would hope that if they're going to make a strong push and trade top prospects, that they're going to be pushing for like a number 2 type starter. We'll see. I just don't think they'll pay a premium for somebody like Duran, but crazier things have been done. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with Ben. I don't think they're going to pay a premium for really. I have a hard time believing they're going to pay a premium for anybody. I think we talked about this last time in terms of lowering expectations for who they're going to get. Last week or last podcast was more starter centric, but obviously this is more kind of like in the bullpen. I just think they value, again, the controllable arms, and I know we talked about this before we jumped in, but Duran has 2.5 years of control left. Pretty reasonable salary that's going to in theory jump up. But I agree, Ben. You mentioned kind of Arias and other prospects being blocked at the major league level, and that was a reason to maybe not there's a reason to move them, but I think they look at it as what they can get for those guys, and obviously Duran, as you mentioned, is a supreme, one of the best closers in baseball. But I think just the way that this team is operated, the way that Breslow has kind of talked about his approach to the deadline, and the way that reports have come out the past couple of days, it's been for the most part all quiet. I mean, things have jumped up a little bit more in the past couple hours, but in the past couple of days, at least, it's been, they've been quiet. They haven't really jumped up. They haven't really, made any major conversations from anybody else. So certainly tepid in my expectations. However, hopeful that they do make a splash with starter, first baseman. I know the Rays, as I mentioned, just made Yandy Diaz available, I suppose, or just began to take calls on him or listen to his availability. So we'll see if Breslow kind of jumps at that opportunity. But I think where I'm at is tempering expectations, same as last week. And I don't really expect them to just ship the farm away for a couple more years of control for a great starter or a great closer or a great player in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think naturally we have to be a little bit pessimistic when we discuss Red Sox trade deadline. We've been, I guess, pretty drastically disappointed each of the last few years. They haven't made the moves that we were looking for. That being said, they're in a better spot than they have been basically since 2021 was the last time they were in this good of a spot. On top of that, their wave of young guys are kind of here. Rafael is really starting to come into his own. Roman Anthony has been phenomenal for the last basically about 26, 27 games. His OPS is over 920, 925 range. Abreu's coming into his own. Their outfield seems set, right? Those three guys are basically locked in there long term. I can't see any of the three moving, and that doesn't even include a guy named Jared Durant. So that brings into the question of, okay, where does a guy like Garcia fit in? He's coming in, he's come up to AAA. He has continued to shine in AAA. I think his numbers are like 299, like 915 OPS, 12 home runs in like 50 games. Like he's shredding in AAA. So, they talk in I think it's Jen, she works for The Athletic. I'm
Jen
forgetting
McCarthy.
a lot. Jen McCarthy, yeah. She put out an excerpt saying, guys like Garcia and Blaze Jordan, and a couple other guys I forget off the top of my head, are the most likely to be dealt because they're going to need to be 40-man roster Rule 5 eligible this year if they don't get put on. So the question comes, okay, what are we going to do with a guy like Garcia? Where is his fit on this team long term? And to me, that answer is I don't really see it. Right? He is a right-handed bat. In theory, he could be the DH, I guess. But he's a guy that I look at and say, okay, he fits the perfect picture of let's use him as a trade chip to go get a different position of need. And Duran, the Twins Duran doesn't necessarily fall into all right, let's give the house for this type of guy. But if a guy like Garcia is on the table to go and get one of the a legitimate top 3 starter, or maybe a Yandy Diaz, they have to entertain a deal like this if it makes them better significantly now. Their job is to trade players that aren't going to be part of their future, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And I think that is he fits that to a T. He's a guy that you may believe in, and if another team believes in him, let's jump on that and get the right return from him. Don't just sell him to sell him, but you guys get what I'm saying, obviously.
No, of course you hype him up and you sell him to the right fit. I mean, this is the benefit. I always speak more negatively about the farm system, but this is the benefit of having a deep farm system, one of a plethora of the same position or similar positions, where when you don't have a path to the major leagues, you can look to trade them and look to get positions of need similar to what we're talking about now. So yes, if there is a trade to be made for whether it's a Diaz, as you mentioned, or Durant or somebody else, you absolutely make that deal, especially if it's a position that you don't have and you are looking to fill. And then you would just look to match up, obviously, the talent level, or at least years of service eligibility, or whatever whatever Breslow and the Red Sox front office deemed to be a quality trade, then you look to make that. But absolutely, you look to trade prospects for.
Because look, realistically, beyond this season, right? Looking at the lineup beyond the season, what positions are uncertain?
Uncertain?
Uncertain, first, second.
First base.
I would say one of third or second, maybe. And that's a big maybe. Because I do think that there's a good chance Bregman opts in no matter what. I think he loves it here, and either he opts in or they rework out a deal.
Yeah.
So I think third base is likely to stay, and then Mayer is what? I would have to imagine he's at second, right?
Mayer would have to be at second base, which leaves really only first base is your only questionable position.
Yeah, I mean, you have, like, the reason I said second is, like, you don't know, is it going to be Christian Campbell? Is it going to be Marcelo Mayer? Like, theoretically, like Trevor Story may not be here. Depends on what. I mean, I know he's guaranteed a contract, right? It's not like a club option or a whatever. So they'd have to move him. But like, I just meant more like you just don't know who's going to play second base. Whereas like first base is like you don't have a first baseman.
No.
Well, you do.
No, you don't.
They'll ship Casas out with the highest bidder.
You have
a first baseman. You have a first baseman for next year just as much as you have a second baseman for next year.
I mean, I wouldn't call platooning your first baseman having a first baseman. That's like saying I have 5 number 1 starters. That means
they never.
No number.
Casas was never going to be a platoon this year.
No, but Casas is probably done in a Red Sox uniform.
Thank God.
I'm putting first base as a need. I'm saying it's an uncertainty, but I'm just saying like
and then,
they do have an option. I think they're going to move on for a different option.
Correct. I mean,
you could also consider Campbell's might be a first base option too.
No,
I mean he's been working there in AAA.
I think they look to move him too.
He's not a first baseman. Like they're doing it because they don't have another guy, and they're like, they're throwing dirt against the wall to see what will stick. They're not trying to convert Christian Campbell into a first baseman.
If he has all offseason to learn it,
I still don't see him as a first baseman.
I think they look to move him before they commit to him as a first baseman.
In all honesty, like to Zach's point, I'm not so sure that Christian Campbell is like off the table in a trade.
Yeah.
But in the next 24 hours.
He's certainly not. He's starting to heat up a little bit. And I posted about it the other day is like if a team is willing to treat him like a top 30 prospect, right? Because I think he's like not qualified anymore because of his major league at bats and all that.
Correct.
But if a team's willing to treat him like a top 30 prospect, which is what he was, 5 months ago, then he's got to be on the table, right? Team's got to look at him and say his deal 8 years, $60 million. Like, yes, it's guaranteed, which maybe isn't ideal given he's back in AAA, but like, it's not like it's anything crazy.
No,
you know what I mean? It's not like they gave him a 10-year, $140 million contract or something like that.
Right.
So he's movable. It really, like I said, it comes down to you have a surplus of these guys. So a guy like Garcia, a guy like Blaze Jordan. I mean, you can even argue Arias. Like he's a little bit further away, so you don't know where things will be in a couple of years and all that. But like, where is his long-term fit on this team?
Yeah,
we have no idea. Mikey Romero, like. Love Mikey. Obviously, he came on the pod. Like, it was great talking to him and all, but where is his fit on this, on the roster long term? I think in their perfect world that Bregman is their third baseman for the next 3 to 4 years after this. Mayer is sitting there at second for the short term and then eventually takes over at shortstop. And then they fill in second base with whether it's like Romero, Arias, something like that down the road. But they have the pieces to move right now and make this team like notably better without sacrificing their long-term potential in future.
Yeah, like
I would,
like if they, and I was gonna say if they can find the right piece or pieces, like guys that I could see them, I shouldn't say expect, but could see them moving, right? Like you have Arias, who really doesn't have a long-term spot. Garcia, we already talked about. Like Peyton Tolley is probably the only guy that I'm not moving, unless somebody is like, oh well, if they get stupid with an offer and they're like, hey, like we really love Peyton Tolley and they're willing to give up a legitimate younger controllable
Joe Ryan type of
yeah,
the only way I'm moving Tolley is if it's for a pitcher that you're going to have control of for the next like 2 to 3 at minimum another 2 years after this.
Yeah,
type of player.
Yeah, and like the other guys that come to mind, like they got James Tibbs in the
Devers trade.
In the Devers trade. So like he's obviously a trade chip. He's probably a year or so away, but he has no long-term future here. I mean, you can go down the list like Cespedes, like Blaze Jordan probably doesn't have really a spot unless he's their potential. Like, okay, we're moving on from Tristan Casas, and maybe Blaze Jordan is our future first baseman. Like, unless that's the plan. Like, and those guys are solid, high ceiling guys that should be able to land you a legitimate something, whether you want to move them for pitching or hitting. Like, obviously we just talked about like first base is a huge need. So, like I know we've talked to Yandy Diaz. I think he has 2 more years of control beyond 2027 is a club option. But
so I proposed Diaz in a mock this morning, and LiveShat said it's not going to be enough. It was basically Garcia and Blaze for Diaz. There was like a minor prospect swap in the back end on each end, but like that was the core of it. And he says it's not even going to be close to enough.
I mean, that's tricky to say because, like, yes, Yandy Diaz is good, but he'll be 34 next year, and it's a club option for 2026. So, like, I don't think they're going to give up, some of their higher end guys for somebody who isn't guaranteed to be here next season. Now, granted, they have the power to control where Yandy Diaz goes because it's a club option. It's not a player option, which is the closest thing to a guaranteed piece of a contract. But I don't know as if they would really want to move it, but like there's no reason that those 2 prospects shouldn't get you Yandy Diaz when he's only under control for 1 more guaranteed season. And
I think it should. I think it absolutely should.
And he's old.
That's why the prospect swap at the end was like a slightly benefit to the Sox, in my opinion. Well, just kind of ranking wise, it's not like I'm some Rays scout expert, but like you're talking about a guy like Garcia who, in his argument, was like, I don't think teams around the league are as high on Garcia. I'm kind of like, why not? He's 22. He's shredded for the last year and a half. He's shredding AAA. He's been seen as a top 100 prospect now for the last few months. Like, why is he not like viewed that highly? And then you toss in a guy like Blaze Jordan, who, he's not some high end prospect, but he's performing pretty well in AAA right now. Like,
yeah,
he has the potential to be a major league first baseman.
Yeah, there's a little boomer bust with Jordan.
Absolutely.
And so when I look at that, you're like, all right, like, like you said, Yandy Diaz is pretty good, but he's 34 with 1 more year of control. And it's not even like it's dirt. It's not like it's like arbitration cheap control.
I mean, for a guy like him, it might as well be. He's making $10 million.
Yeah, no, it's cheap for him overall, but it's like, I don't understand a guy like that. Like, why is he going to command some type of major contract? Because nobody, even for Diaz after next year, is going to want to give him more than like a 2-year deal.
Right.
No one's giving 35-year-old Yandy Diaz like a 6-year deal.
Of course not. And he's probably going to have to transition to DH. just because of his age. Like, his body's going to start breaking down. Like, I know that he's been a good first baseman this year. But, you know, a good first baseman at 33 is not the same as a 35-year-old guy on a contract. You know, that,
No, of
like,
course not.
you know, and, you know, so he'll, you know, he's eventually going to break down. I mean, I just wonder, like, my concern is the report from Chris Cotillo via, I think it was Jeff Passan, basically hinted at the fact that the Sox weren't really interested in acquiring I mean, they already have an ace, but a top of the rotation type guy, and that they were really just looking to add somebody to the back end of the rotation. And I don't know if that's just the market. It kind of feels like it. Like, there's no, you know, and I don't know. I know it doesn't happen every year, but there's no there's no buzz around a ton of big names this year. Like sometimes you will see. So I just wonder if, like, the market's just not really hot to a point where, you know, there's not a ton of guys out there, so the demand for certain guys is a lot higher, which is why the Twins told Philly, we want Andrew Painter, you know, because they know that they're like, well, you know, there's not a ton of top bullpen arms. Somebody will make us an offer for a legitimate, you know, with a legitimate return. I just wonder if the market is kind of dictating them being like, you know, we'll make a couple of moves, but we're not going to overextend ourselves for the sake of making a trade, which you don't want to do. You know, so it's like, I kind of ride the fence on that, because you want them to make the move, because apparently they've told teams that, like, Chapman's not on the block. So it's like, okay, you're not selling off your pieces that would yield a return. So you're basically telling teams that you're buying. But then,
Yeah.
but then the vibe you're giving off is that, like, you'd be fine with acquiring, like, a Charlie Morton type number 5 starter. Like those two things don't add up. It just feels like the market is weird this year, and they're just not willing to overextend themselves.
Well, it's a catch-22, because it feels like you're right, Ben, and Matt, you said this before, but it feels like, you know, they're into it. They're gonna, you know, they're all in terms of making the playoffs. They're in a playoff position for the first time in 2021. So
breaking news: Johan Duran is going to the Philadelphia Phillies.
Shocker.
Son of a.
Dave Dombrowski once again gets his guy. But
Ken
it feels like
and Carabas retweeted Rosenthal. I'll see if I can get the details on the trade.
Yeah, I'm on BR Walk-Off now.
Rosenthal's got it. So if you want to follow Rosenthal's X account, I've got MLB trade rumors popped up. Because they'll just post.
No, I don't see any. Yeah, there's been no.
Yeah, just Rosenthal tweeted that they're making the deal, but I don't see details. I'll see if I can pick some up. So go ahead.
Neither do I. But what I was saying is, I guess that takes one person off the list. But it is a catch-22, because it feels, like I said, that, you know, on one hand, you're in it, you're all in to go to the playoffs and make that final playoff push. What are they, 5 games out now of AL East? But also, they don't want to go too in and kind of mortgage the future for a potential rental or a potential, you know, missing the playoffs, whatever the case. Like, kind of how, like, the Rangers did with Cole Reagans and Chapman. So it does leave you in this, like, middle ground of, okay, well, if we're not going to go get the true superstars, you know, quote unquote, who are on the trading block, Joe Ryan, Johan Duran, you name them, then it does leave us with like those kind of tier 2, tier 3 players who are just inevitably going to be a bit less of, you know, the exciting guys, and probably less of a impact on your team. But that doesn't mean that, like, you shouldn't go do them just because you're not going to get the number one. I'm kind of with you of, like, don't make a trade to make a trade. Make a trade because you think it'll actually make your team better in the now, but also and keep you guys competitive in the future.
Yeah, I don't see them going big on a rental. But like we kind of talked about, they have a few pieces that they can move that just don't fit into their future, right? And I did have someone earlier, you know, Manny P come in. Why not give Garcia reps at first? And I guess in theory, like, it could be a possibility over the offseason if he's still here and stuff like that. But, you know, they have the option to move a guy like Garcia, move a guy like Blaze Jordan, maybe a guy like Mikey Romero, that can get you a legitimate piece for now and in the future. And they need to be. I don't expect like fireworks from them, but they need to go and get a legitimate legitimate two pieces to improve this team. Whether that's a more prominent right-handed bat at first base, whether that is a number like a Michael Walker type of pitcher from the Royals, whether that's a couple good bullpen arms. Well, I don't want just bullpen, but like a bullpen arm, or maybe a lower end option is improve on Connor Wong, who conveniently got a couple hits today. Granted, one of them was like a dinky ass blooper that fell in no man's land along the first baseline, but they have the assets to go and get it. So when you look around the market, Ben, like you said, there's not a lot like names being thrown out there. I will say the whole rumor mill has been rather quiet for the most part over the last few days. Not a ton of news getting pushed out, not a ton of rumors getting pushed out. So, that could be part of it. And I know I forget who it was, someone reported that like they're not hearing anything from the Red Sox. Like it's like dead silent. They're not really talking, giving any leaks or anything like that, which could be a good thing. But they need to make some type of move, at least one move that says we're going for it, right?
Yeah.
And if it's we add Charlie Morton and some like sixth inning reliever that has like a low 4 ERA, like those aren't the type of moves.
No, those are the type of moves they made last year.
Yeah, there has to be at least one like this is a piece that is absolutely going to help. And I would take and that could be like a Michael Walker. Like he's a guy that I vouched a lot for last week. Like that isn't going to be a fireworks type move, but like that's a legitimate move to help this team win. Because Michael Walker could be your fourth starter in a playoff series, right? If you need to go 4 starters deep.
Yeah.
Michael Walker could be a high-end playoff multi-inning reliever type of thing.
Yeah.
Or you could turn in there's I forget his last name. I'm having a mind blank. He's actually a Twins reliever. His first name's Brock something. He's a reliever that's been performing very well. That again could be moved too, and probably for like a fourth of the price of Duran. That would be a legitimate
Brock Stewart.
Yeah. Yep. He's a guy that would be a legitimate add to their bullpen that I would like to see. And probably wouldn't cost too much. You may be getting to give up like maybe a couple mid-tier prospects. Maybe you throw in like a guy like Zach Kelly or something like that.
Yeah.
Into the mix to get him here. So it really comes down to like what do Ben, what's your minimum of what you would deem like acceptable?
I mean, it doesn't have to be Yandy Diaz, but like a guy who can be a like 2/3 to 3/4 of your games played at first baseman type guy, that's what Yandy Diaz is. You don't have to worry about righty lefty. You don't have to worry about rotational stuff. So that would be nice. And then I'm a little softer on the pitching situation. Like I'd be fine if you got like a legit number 3 or better. Like I don't think it does. Like to me, it doesn't have to be a legit number 2. Like if you got somebody who could slot in and be a true number 3, who has the ceiling of being a number 2, that's really what I'm looking for. Like a higher end 3 or a guy that's solidly a 2 is what I'm looking for. If they go out.
So the deal is Eduardo Tate and Mick Abel.
Who has that?
Bob Nightingale.
Oh, and Buster Olney has it too. All right, hold on one second. Let's see.
Mick Abel, I know. Eduardo Tate is their 4th ranked prospect, a catcher, 18 years old.
So
and Mick Abel has he made his debut? Yeah. He has 25 innings this year. Former first-round pick.
I don't know what site you're on. I just have MLB prospects, but yeah, Tate is their 4th and Abel is their 6th.
Yeah, that's what I just pulled up real quick.
Okay. I don't subscribe to Baseball America, so I can't do the deep dive there.
I mean, so put that in comparison. 4 and 6, we're talking like Brandon Clark and Connor Lee early.
Well, I mean, I would say you probably
or James Tibbs.
I mean, maybe. I would say and it really depends on obviously the number 4 Phillies prospect and the Red Sox number 4 prospect are not equal necessarily. And it really depends. So for example, Sox prospects has Tyson Witherspoon and Brandon Clark as their 4th and 6th ranked prospects. But I would say that, you in order to get, you probably would have had to do Arias and Garcia. You probably would have had to go a little bit better.
I don't know if that far. I think you could have probably got Garcia and Early or Garcia and Tibbs.
Well, you figure too, right? If I'm not saying he's completely dialed in or plugged in, but what if Lifshatz is right and baseball just isn't as high on Garcia as the Red Sox are? So real quick, so Fangraphs, they have Eduardo Tate as their 5th overall prospect and Mick Abel at 13.
Okay.
What was that again? Repeat that.
Fangraphs, Eduardo Tate at 5, Mick Abel at 13.
For Major League prospects?
That's Fangraphs Phillies top 30 prospects. Tate 5, Mick Abel 13. Most places are pretty much in agreement that Andrew Painter and Aiden Miller are 1 and 2. It seems like beyond that, there's some discrepancies. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
That's our conversation.
It's like a top 5 prospect in your system and a top 8 prospect in your system, roughly.
Yeah. From a conversation before, if we're offering up or if we're being asked about a position of a surplus, outfielder, for example, you mentioned James Tibbs. If he was offered up and the Sox declined for whatever reason, I'd be pretty annoyed because there's really no space for him up at the top. But I mean,
yeah, I didn't see anything on social media indicating the Red Sox were even having conversations with the Twins about Durant.
I saw a few things, but I don't know how legitimate they were. But I saw a few things that they was between the Red Sox, Phillies, and a few other people for Durant.
Okay, I'd the Mariners jumped in the mix. I didn't hear that the Red Sox were involved
with Duran.
I mean it's possible. I didn't.
Heyman like a couple probably during the Sox game made the comments of that it was Phillies and Sox were the 2 names he specifically mentioned.
Yeah.
All right.
And Dustin comes in and says, Kelly or Gallen or Keller. I think Merrill Kelly is a very legitimate option for them. And he hasn't been talked enough here. Good.
Yeah, I'd love them to go get Zach Gallen. I know he's had a rough year. Real quick, just to add to this. So according to MLB prospects, so this I don't know if this is considered MLB pipeline, but in the MLB prospects top 100, Tate is 56 and Abel is 92. So it cost 2 top 100s with one guy being a fringe top 50.
That seems like a stretch. I mean, Abel's a top 100, and then in other spots, he's not even in the top 10 of their system.
I mean, I'd have to see where does. Let me see if Fangraphs does a general.
You just said Fangraphs has them 13th. There's no way there's 13 Phillies prospects in the top 100.
No, I mean, I would assume not. I just want to see where does Fangraphs have Tate in their top 100? They do a top 100. So Eduardo Tate. Let's see. How old is this article? Oh, it's from February. It's not up to date.
Yeah.
Their February top 100 didn't have either of those guys in the top 100. So, but yeah, so according to MLB.com's Prospect Watch, they traded a fringe top 50 and then another top 100 guy. So let's just go off of that list. So for the Red Sox to have made that deal, you're talking, let's see, who's like near the bottom of the 100. So that would have been arguably either Peyton Tolley and Garcia. Garcia's 89, Tolley's 93 on the MLB Pipeline top 100. But then they don't have a fringe top 50 prospect. The closest prospect they have anywhere to the 50s is Arias at 33. So like you probably could, like, if they really wanted to get him, they probably would have needed to give up Arias and then somebody just outside the top 100, which would be could be like Luis Perales, Brandon Clark, Connolly Early, like somebody in that category, James Tibbs, Blaze Jordan, like somebody in that realm, because Arias is a lot higher on most top lists versus Eduardo Tate. So they wouldn't have had to have give up like another top 100 guy.
That feels doable. Like I said, I mean, it depends on where you view Arias playing. If you want to throw him into the mix for second base, obviously there's no room for Garcia. So now you're getting into the conversation of, is Garcia worth Duran or Garcia and something worth Duran? But certainly that feels like a very doable trade from a availability and room at the major league level standpoint.
Yep. Yeah, so I mean, back to the Sox. Like I know that he's had a rough year. I would love if they could get their hands on Zach Gallen. He's got, I have to double check. I know he's got a few. He's not just a rental. He does have some years of control. He's not that far removed from. I don't know if he won the Cy Young, but he was a top 3 Cy Young award winner within the last year or two. So actually, no. Zach Gallen's in his last year of arbitration. So Zach Gallen, I thought he had at least 1 year left. He is a free agent next year. So you can probably scratch Zach Gallen because apparently the Red Sox do not have interest in rental arms.
Well, so is Merrill Kelly.
Is also a rental.
Yeah, he's on the club, but so is Charlie Moore. And I think that they'll dabble in a rental arm. It's just like they're not going to dabble and give up the farm on a guy like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I mean, if I had a handshake agreement with Zach Gallen on a, market value contract that he would just sign an extension, then I'd be more willing to move bigger pieces. I don't know if I would necessarily want. I don't know. I mean, and I don't think he would cost much. Like Merrill Kelly is going to be 37 next year, and he's a free agent. So, like, he's probably going to be a guy that goes to like a New York Yankees or trying to think of some of the other teams. Like, the Mariners don't need pitching. Like maybe he goes to the Cubs, or a team that's on the trying to make a push for a division title. That's while they're a wild card team now, they're just on the outside looking in it for a division. Like Merrill Kelly's not signing an extension. He's not a guy at his age that you would give up a ton for unless you're willing to give up a little bit because you want to win now because you're knocking on the door. Just feels odd. The whole market just feels odd.
The market's a little quieter than I would say the average trade deadline. Like there's just not a lot of people talking in terms of like, oh, this guy's available, this guy's available. We've heard at least a little bit but not a ton of like all the names that I think that there is going to be some surprise names dealt over the next, what is this, 24 hours? When is the deadline? Tomorrow? Tomorrow at 4?
6 p.m. I think.
It's a later deadline. They moved it back to 6, so we're just inside of 24 hours at this point.
Yeah. So, side note: the Giants' record since Devers trade is worse than the MLB, and their runs per game is worse than the MLB. That's interesting.
Isn't he hitting like 0.77 or something like that too?
Yeah, he's been pretty shitty.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, he's been pretty shitty so far since they go there. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like the Sox, it's tough to get into the relievers too much and like going down that realm. But in terms of starters, again, like I go back to a guy like Michael Walker that makes a lot of sense for them. I know they have supposedly checked in on like Edward Cabrera, Sandy Alcantara, what is it?
Alcantara, I think.
Alcantara, whatever, how to properly say it. I don't necessarily view starter as like as pressing as they seem to. I do want them to add one, but at the same time, there's only a few like legitimate holes, right? So it's first base. They could use a starter. They could use another bullpen arm and maybe upgrade a catcher. So I think that they absolutely have to do at least 2 out of those 4 things. And catcher being last on that list because like it's the backup catcher type of thing. So it's like it's not even like Wong is playing even half the games. But they have to do a minimum of 2 out of those 4 things. And by address, I mean like legitimately address, not like sign some Joe Schmo reliever to come into the mix. I mean,
yeah, and there's a couple other guys like some guys have already been moved, like Tyler Rogers already got moved. There's like Bednar might be on the block. We'll see. But I guess it's like you said, it's really hard to dive into that. I mean, obviously that you can't have enough pitching. Like I feel even in today's day and age, like you win championships with elite pitching and really good defense. That can overcome, if your offense isn't playing well, your offense doesn't need to be on its A game every day if your pitching staff's only giving up, a run or 2 or even 3 runs a game. So, you can never have enough pitching. I just, can't speculate on the details, but I just hope this isn't one of those situations where they look at it and go, like, we don't need certain things. But yeah, the reliever market's interesting. Like I would be fine if they went out and they got like a David Bednar. I'm not exactly sure who else might be available, but I mean, I like Waka, but like that's a guy that like I would like if they say they got Yandy Diaz and Michael Waka, like I'd be like, great, like we got Yandy Diaz, he can definitely help, but like Michael Waka would be like he fits and he helps, and I'm like, but he doesn't really move the needle. Like he wouldn't excite me as a guy they brought in to like be part of the rotation.
No, but I mean, as long as they get, as Matt said, like someone who fills a position of need, I would, by talking myself into Michael Waka really over the duration of his podcast, more so because he's pitched in the playoffs before, and he's certainly pitched in Boston before, right? So like he didn't pitch in the playoffs in Boston, but he was with St. Louis when they were in the playoffs. He was with, he's been around the block a few times. He knows what it's like to pitch in playoff baseball. And also, if they were to go out and get a guy who doesn't necessarily fit like a need exactly, but can certainly provide a spark and can provide as a plus. If he's negative on, let's say, defense at first base, if he's a plus elsewhere in terms of at the plate with power or average, similar to how Kyle Schwarber was in 2021 when they were in the same position before. Like they tried to shoehorn him into first base, which was a negative, but then he was just an absolute monster at the plate. So if they can get someone like him to, as I said, like a Yandy Diaz, right? He obviously plays first base. He'll probably be a DH in the future, but he'll he'll mash at Fenway Park if they think it's a.
And grade me this: Diaz and Waka are the two deals. They don't give up. They give up. Let's say Garcia and Blaze for Diaz, and they give up Mikey Romero and Cespedes for Waka.
I give it a B minus. The only reason I give it a maybe B minus is because I don't know that I really want to face the two guys you gave up in the AL East, but that's really just a semantics thing. So I'd be happy with that.
I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like it's like B would and that would be, like the players that you got in return. You didn't give up a ton, but it's like that's not like those two guys are not helping the Boston Red Sox win the World Series.
Well, then when you were talking about they need to go and get a superstar player,
no. I'm just saying, like, I would much rather I would much rather them go get a better, I would much rather trade more key pieces for Joe Ryan than give up middling prospects for Michael Wacha. That's what I'm saying. Like Joe, and more so for Joe Ryan, Yandy Diaz moves the needle for me more so than Wacha does. Like if it's Michael Wacha and Joe Ryan, I'd be like, okay, the Red Sox are for real.
Well, yeah, if they got Yandy D, if they got Joe Ryan and Pete Alonso, would be an A+. But
see, I also disagree that Diaz and Wacha doesn't help them win a World Series. Those are two legitimate players that fill holes for them and make them a notably better ball club.
Yeah,
Diaz immediately jumps into the top 5 of the order. He's a top 5 bat that can crush the ball and fill a position of need. And then Walker would come in and be a very legitimate number 3 or 4 for them.
Yeah, and I don't want to act like this team doesn't necessarily already have guys who can be, veterans of the locker room, can get us to the World Series. I mean, Bregman is the first one that comes to mind. Other players on that team have won the World Series too. So it isn't like we're looking for a complete rebuild, just guys who can kind of balance the roster out and provide more, whether it's depth or, again, balance to their lineup, field, whatever. So, no, on paper, Walker's not going to jump off the page and be like, Steve Pearce was. But, although I guess he could be a Steve Pearce, because Steve Pearce didn't really jump off the page either. So,
no, I would prefer that they go get a better pitcher.
Of course.
I mean, obviously, we all would.
Of course.
But in a vacuum in that scenario, and I'm not to say that acquiring Michael Michael Wacha doesn't do enough that you should have just not traded for him at all. That he just doesn't really excite me in the way that makes me you get a B, but he doesn't excite me enough to make you feel the team believes they can make a run and win a World Series this year.
Yeah,
again,
right away.
Here's just a hypothetical. What do you think the Giants would say? Let's say Devers was on board with it. What would you think the Giants would say if you offered the exact same players back for Devers?
They'd probably take it.
Do you think they say no, or do you think they say yes?
At the way he's been playing, the way they've been playing, I think they probably would very much consider it. For what, 7 years? How many years does he have left? 7, 8?
I think it's this year. I think it's this year and then 7 more.
So 7.5 roughly years, a little less than that. For
imagine the Sox trade him back for everybody but Tibbs.
Yeah, for 7.5 years for a guy who's been sucking for you for the past month and a half, and you give up just prospects back. I think they'd have a hard time saying no to that.
Yeah, this is the 3rd year of year 10 of his deal. So it's the rest of the season and 7 more.
Okay.
Oh no, it is.
Right.
I can't count. The first thing on Spotrac is it's crossed out his arbitration year, So I thought it was that. No, he's got this year and then 8 more seasons.
Was it an 11-year deal then?
No, it was a 10-year deal, but the deal didn't start until 24.
Oh, so it was like his last year of.
Yeah, but I don't know. But it's weird. It
Okay.
says on their website. It has a strike through on the arbitration 3 for the status of his 2023 season. So I assumed.
So they bought out that arbitration year.
They must have bought it out for a higher value, and that they must have bought out the arbitration year for a higher value and said we'll start your contract in 2024.
Okay, so on paper it was 11 years, but in reality it was 10 plus.
Yeah, he signed it in 2023, but it doesn't look like it started until 24 because it's 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that was a panic move by John Henry.
Yeah. 2023 was just a boost in salary, and then the extension started in 2024.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how the next 23 hours and 4 minutes goes. I'd like the Red Sox to make some moves, as we would all, but I mean, I suppose anything's plausible at this point. It's so quiet that it's really hard to gauge.
Yeah, nothing's been coming out. All I've been seeing is that there's been like nothing. The only reports I've been seeing is that there's not a lot of reports out.
Yeah. I mean, like obviously Duran just got traded. Tyler Rogers was acquired by the Mets like an hour and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the Giants traded him. They gave up 3 They traded 3 they acquired 3 prospects from the Mets. But
Brian Hayes went to the Reds.
That's right. Brian Hayes got traded. I guess the only other notable thing from a couple hours ago from Ken Rosenthal is that the Mets, although the Phillies are out of it at this point, but that the Mets and Yankees would be, and the Phillies too, but they're obviously not going to have those conversations anymore, have been in contact with the Athletics. I almost called them Oakland, but they're not Oakland anymore, about Mason Miller.
Oh.
Not an arm I would want to face if I'm a Red Sox.
No.
So from 5 o'clock says Yankees, Mets, and Phillies have all engaged in talks with the A's regarding Mason Miller. And it says the update comes 10 days after Bob Nightingale reported that in no uncertain terms, Mason Miller was not going to be traded. Says that Rosenthal basically said that they're listening, but it's unlikely that he gets moved. Obviously, it doesn't involve the Red Sox. Could if the Yankees pull the trigger. But yeah, certainly an oddly quiet deadline.
I mean, that Duran news came out, I think, like that it was down to the Red Sox, Phillies, Mariners, even within the past like hour and a half, it feels like, and then Dave does what Dave does and pulls the trigger. So we probably won't even know of any Red Sox news until it happens.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate.
That's what Dombrowski does.
Which is unfortunate. Unless the Twins want to open up just the roster for everybody and start giving us Joe Ryan for free.
I mean,
I'd be very okay with that.
Yeah, it's tough to like jump into too much like hypotheticals in these type of talks. It's just really like what are the Red Sox going to be? Are they going to be legitimate buyers, or are they going to be fake buyers in this situation? That seems to be the question. And for all of our sakes, we're all like trying to keep a guard up to not have too high expectations.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like we can't help ourselves. Like we expect them to be at least semi-real buyers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Have to be. I mean, yeah, you have to be. I don't expect this to be they'll sit on the fence and they'll buy a little bit here and sell a little bit there. I think they have to be buyers. I think that, I mean, at least so far to this point, like the American League hasn't gotten better, but I would say that kind of makes the argument that they should be going out and making these moves because no one's separating themselves from the pack. They're 8 games over 500, 5 games out of the division. They're a game up on, I think it's Texas for the last wild card spot. I'm sorry, they're a game up on Seattle, 2 games up on Texas. So they're 2 games clear of a wild card spot, and then it gets into the Tampa Bay Rays are next in line. So, given that no one's really making the moves, I kind of feel like
someone's got to pull away and make a move. Yeah.
You got to do something.
Like we talked about, this is the first time that they've been a legitimate buyers, like in the buyer world since 2021. And the question is, like, are they going to show that they're for real? They just unloaded a ton of, annual money from Devers, so they got money to spend. So it's like, do something. And I mean, we can kind of leave it at that, and we'll see over the next 24 hours if they are gonna step up to the plate. But like,
pun intended,
without beating the same drum over and over again.
Yeah, it's like the stick meme where the cartoon stick guys like poking, being like, do something.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we all feel.
Yeah. So
all
right, we'll wrap it up there. We got plenty of time to do Patriots talk in the coming weeks and really months. Any final thoughts here on the Red Sox? In terms of the trade deadline and what you kind of are hoping for and expecting.
Like I said, doesn't have to be the big splash. Doesn't have to be the Joe Ryans or the you name it. Just do something that you think is going to help you get to the playoffs for the first time in 4 years. That if he's here next year, great. But don't I would hate to see them not make a move because of like the future in 3 years, whatever that's going to be. Within reason, of course, but like if you think he can make you a better team, help you get towards the playoffs, offensively or defensively or whatever, pitching wise, have to make it, have to pull a trigger, be aggressive.
Yeah, and I think that they can be aggressive without selling the future. I mean, obviously part of the future is here now, right? Like I know Mayer just went on the DL, but Roman Anthony's been very, very good lately. So yeah, I mean, be aggressive enough, but don't be stupid. Would love to, be scrolling, Twitter tomorrow and, Red Sox get, go get a Zach Gallen type guy or or splurge a little bit for a Joe Ryan if the Twins are willing to cool on their asking price. I guess they were asking for like a Garrett Crochet type return, and Joe Ryan is not Garrett Crochet. And then, whether it's Yandy Diaz or not, you gotta go get somebody at first. It's a short wish list, but like Zach said, be aggressive, but also don't be stupid.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. All right. We'll leave it at that. Give me something though. I just want to be, I think we're all a little bit excited for the Red Sox right now for the first time in a while. They're playing some pretty good ball over the last couple years, couple weeks, couple months, really. Couple years. So it's just like, all right, give me something to believe in. And I'm hoping at this time tomorrow, they show us that they believe in this roster and team as much as we do, right? I mean, that's kind of like the basis of it. So
yeah.
All right, that will do it for this week. We appreciate you all listening. A few of you tuned in, gave some comments. This will be up tomorrow, maybe tonight, but tomorrow morning at the latest. Till then, we're raising the banner. We'll be back with a post-trade deadline next week, and then we'll be jumping into some Patriots talk as well. as the season progresses. And I think it's a week from this Friday is the first preseason game. A lot of shaping up in training camp.
General or for the Patriots?
Quick on X, according to Jen McCaffrey. Jaron Duran is squarely in the mix as the trade deadline gets closer, with the Padres continuing to be aggressive. The Red Sox are apparently would consider moving him to acquire Dylan Cease and Leo DeVries.
That's the Padres' number one prospect. I would do that.
Do that in a heartbeat.
So the Mets are trading for Ryan Helsley.
That was the other name I was trying to think. That he was the other relief pitcher that was I was blanking on it earlier.
So just to not to jump it, but Leo DeVries is their number one prospect. He is also, I believe, he is the number 3 prospect in baseball on MLB.com. 18-year-old in high A right now. Like, he's got everything I read on him, because I was doing some mocks and stuff the other day. He's got that type of potential. 6'1", 183, shortstop. Like, he's built very well. He's got like legitimate power, legitimate fielder, legitimate arm. He's just a stud prospect. But if they could do something like that, oh man, it would hurt trading Duran, but I would consider it. But all right, until next week, we'll raise the banner. Goodbye. Please make a trade. For the love of God,
do something.
Do something.